Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today I want to talk about landing clearances. Now, many of you flying on the VATSIM network, and probably also my friends on IVAO and probably others, will rather often see go-arounds where people go around when they haven't received a landing clearance by the time they are 3 nautical miles out. Now, that is of course nonsense, but when exactly do you need to go around, and when should you start a go around if no landing clearance is received? Well, first of all, there are a couple different approaches. So our friends in the United States, for example, are simply always going to give you a landing clearance whenever you make initial contact with the tower. Well, that is certainly one way to do things, but it means that ATC is giving responsibility to the pilot to initiate a go-around. Could preceding traffic still remain on the runway, and for whatever reason, the tower frequency be blocked at the time. Say, for example, because of a student pilot making their first initial call, VFR trying to cross the control zone, which might be a little bit time-consuming. Now, in the rest of the world, it's the other way around, and air traffic control has to give a landing clearance just before the aircraft lands. Now, for pilots, the landing clearance simply has to be received by the time you touch down on the runway. There are some companies which do make it a requirement that a landing clearance is received by the minimum, or at least an expect late landing clearance call has to be received by the time you reach the minimum on your approach in order to be able to continue your approach. Now, from a purely legal standpoint, that is not applicable. From a purely legal standpoint, all you need is a landing clearance by the time your wheels touch the ground. Now, let's put that a little bit into perspective for your actual flying experience. When would you need a landing clearance? Well, let's say you're on approach on a busy event on VATSIM and there's aircraft before you, aircraft behind you, and it's about as busy as it gets. Now, personally, by the time I pass my minimum, I would like the controller to give me an expect late landing clearance. However, if that has not been received, then I can still continue my approach, but I would personally set my bar a little bit higher, like I want to see what's going on. So I want to see preceding aircraft on the runway or the preceding aircraft just getting airborne in order to continue the approach then. Of course, we also need to take into account the height of the minimum there. Usually, I'm talking about a Cat 1 minimum over here, where you're 200 above the ground. If you've got a very high minima on a non-precision approach that might be a couple thousand feet high, then obviously things are looking a little bit different. But there is that tendency for pilots to like their minimas and couple certain things to it. Now, if we do say that we are on a normal approach, the controller tells us to expect the late landing clearance. Until what point can we continue our approach? Well, basically until you start the flare, because that is usually the latest point where you can still start to go around without touching the runway. The entire legal requirement here is that you must not touch the runway without the landing clearance received. So, with the vast majority of aircraft, you still have ample energy to stop the airplane descending and make it climb again by the time you start the flare and the landing, and that is about as far as you can continue without a landing clearance. Now, what would we do then if it's really busy and if there is just too much happening on the frequency, and you can see that the previous guy is airborne, but we've got the same situation as mentioned earlier for the go-around instruction in the States. We've got an inexperienced student pilot making his initial call on the frequency, completely blocking it off. Well, in the real world, they would simply give you your clearance over the guard frequency 1 to 1.5. However, that does not happen on VATSIM because it's not allowed to actually use the guard frequency. We're usually all monitoring it, but you're actually not allowed to transmit on there, not even animal voices, my dear friends. So that option is kinda gone. Well, for VATSIM operation, provided that the runway is clear and the frequency is blocked, I would probably continue to land. In the real world, a little bit more thought would go into it. Is my runway actually clear? Is it safe to land there? But going around from a runway that is completely clear in front of you, where there is really no obvious reason to not land the airplane, and when it is obvious why you do not have contact with ATC at the moment, say for example that the frequency is being blocked, it is up to the pilot in command to make a decision whether it is safer to land the airplane now or to continue into a go-around. So, that much about landing clearances and when you should expect them at the latest. I do hope that you found this video interesting. As always, be sure to leave a comment to let me know what you think about this one, and if you're up for more, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Finally, if you really love what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. But until then, I would like to say thank you very much for watching, and I see you all again on the next one.